Hey, welcome to the Wealth Smart Families podcast. My name is Dan McCabe, and I'm your host, and I am excited for this interview today. I was able to get a friend of mine that I met a couple months ago by the name of Preston Anderson to pop on the show. And I met Preston, it's kind of interesting, in the hallway at an event in Denver, Colorado, back in August. And this event was super cool. And I'm going to talk about this event in more depth somewhere else, and I'll make sure that you guys hear about it because it was an event. It was a marketing event and a entrepreneurship event, but I was able to bring my 10-year-old son to it and get him exposed to everything, which was super cool. Well, Jax and I were walking through the hallway and we bumped into Preston. We just started talking and he was telling me all the different kinds of tax strategies that families can use to save more money. It fits, it aligns perfectly with what we do with Wealth Smart Families. So I was like, hey, man, we got to get this stuff out to our audience. People are going to love it. So fortunate today to get him on the podcast. So thanks for being here, Preston.
Yeah, Dan, thank you. This is a lot of fun being on. It's kind of fun meeting you in the hallway, literally on the way to the bathroom.
Right.
I actually met Russell Brunson in the bathroom there as well. So he and Stephen Larson were chatting, and so yeah, I got to meet him. And
so from that point forward,
like
did you ever
Right.
What happens in the hallway? From that point, did you ever leave the bathroom, or was that just kind of?
Yeah, it's where I hung out. I just hung out on the way to and from the bathroom. Kind of got to meet as many people as I could going.
Perfect. Hey, there's a book out there called "How I Made $1 Million in the Hallway," so it's out there. I want to get into. I mean, before we get into some of the tax stuff, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, how you made the transition from being a CPA to doing just family taxes and making that your focus?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of different type of entrepreneurs and families, and I've been in this industry for 15 years. Started in 2004, and I worked for other accountants doing all sorts of stuff, just mostly tax prep. It was kind of your traditional accountant with the green visor and the machine you pulled down. I kept seeing opportunities for people to save money, and one of the biggest ones was I helped a family that they came in. They were just literally on the verge of divorce. They got a 1099 for $400,000. And my boss told them they owed $100,000 in tax. And he just asked me to look at it. And I found two or three loopholes that we were able to use. And it ended up saving them that entire $100,000. And they ended up getting a big refund.
Perfect.
Yeah, and they didn't actually end up owing taxes for 3 years after that because of those loopholes that I found. And when I found that, I mean, they were literally on the verge of divorce that night. Now, I'm not going to say I completely saved their marriage because unfortunately they did get divorced about a year later. But it did save their marriage.
Funny. I shouldn't laugh.
It did save their marriage for a while. I mean, it was a happy story at the end. They both turned out well, but that year, I mean, it took, by taking off that $100,000 of pressure, it was able to really relieve a lot of that pressure in their marriage.
Right.
So,
well, finance
at that point,
a huge stress in relationships. That's a different podcast, but yeah, it's anything you can do to save money is huge. So sorry, continue.
No, you're good. You're good. And so I realized at that point exactly kind of the power of tax planning and how much it can actually do for people beyond just doing a return for somebody at the end of the year, but instead looking for ways to, like you said, relieving that pressure off of their shoulders, because financial pressure, I mean, it's one of the biggest causes for divorce. And when you can take a little bit off of that from the tax perspective, it can do nothing but help.
Right. And it goes so much, I mean, that's a huge part of it. And a big part of our mission with Wealth Smart Families is, helping people, whether it's build that second stream of income, relieve pressure, save money. Saving money is just like making more money. And, it might take away a lot of the stress in their life, but it also could increase their, disposable income to take that vacation with their kids, to go create those memories, to go and do, additional cool things and just, have the freedom to do that. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I know we talked about, previously when you and I chatted is that, so for these entrepreneurial parents, and if you're not an entrepreneurial parent, we're going to talk about how really any parent can become an entrepreneurial parent later on here in this show. But for the entrepreneurial parents that are out there, if you've got something going on, you've got ways for them to even vacation for free that you have found and discovered, and some strategies around that. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are a couple strategies that I've used with my family. There's a couple of them. The first one, it's pretty simple. When you have a cash back credit card in your personal name, it's no big deal. The cash is tax free. But when you have a cash back tax card in your business, all of a sudden those are rebates and they reduce the amount of the expenses. So it acts as income. And so rather than taking that income in the business, you convert it to some type of a rewards card. And my wife and I, we actually just got back from our anniversary. It was paid for 100% by my business without actually my business forking out the cash. My business used the points that it has generated for us to stay at this 5-star hotel in the city of Chicago
Nice.
for a couple of nights.
Nice.
And so we've done this a few times. Next summer, we're planning a Hawaiian vacation that my business is 100% paying for through airline miles and through hotel points. The business is paying for all of that.
Right.
So that's one way to do it. The other way is to kind of find ways to convert your business trips into vacation,
Right.
or your personal vacation into a business trip. Okay?
Yep. Done that before.
And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Like you said, you went to Denver, Colorado for that's a business trip.
Right.
And along the way, you can convert all of the days that you're not working into business. And there are ways. I think I've included a spreadsheet a PDF that shows you all of the different rules that you have to meet to be able to convert things to a business trip.
Right.
And there's actually ways you can literally take a cruise that is essentially personal, but it's on the direction to your event. And by taking a direct route, even though it's through a cruise, you can take a 5-day cruise and it's on the way to your event. And that all of a sudden becomes a personal.
That's how you got there. You got to buy a plane ticket, a train ticket, or you got to take a big giant boat. I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, makes sense to me. And yeah, you mentioned that you've got like a PDF, you've got an informational packet that our listeners are going to be able to download. And we'll tell you how to do that here later on in the show, because I definitely want them to get that resource. One of the other things that we talked about in the hallway in front of the bathroom while we were at that event in Denver that you'd made mention is that there's some really cool loopholes around paying your kids. And this is probably something not very many people have thought of or do by any stretch of the imagination. So let's dive into that a little bit and see what the entrepreneurial parents can do with their kids. What kind of work do they have to do? How much can you pay them? That kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of those things. Like I said, I used to be kind of just a general accountant, right? And did people's taxes. And this isn't something that I have a bachelor's in accounting and a master's in tax. I didn't learn any of these strategies in those programs. This one I found out about because I have my own kids and was searching for things to pay for their hockey, pay for their ice skating. And there are ways to do that without actually having the business pay for those things. And so one of the things that we kind of talked about with you is hiring your kids. You can, if you're structured properly, you can pay your kids up to $12,000 per year, 100% tax-free. So that's no income tax, no Social Security and Medicare, at least on the Fed side. So the states sometimes differ and sometimes sometimes they'll say you're exempt, sometimes not. It kind of depends on which state you're in. So like in Illinois, you can make up to $2,000 tax-free above and beyond that, but you're going to pay the tax anyway. So you're just saving the Fed. And so for what I do, I have my daughter shred documents for me. I have her clean my office, and every time she does, I pay her $30 a day. So I try to every single day get her to do something for me. And that works out to about $10,000 a year. And you're able to do up to $12,000, 100% tax-free.
Gotcha.
So it's tested from 7 to 17, where any kid that is at least 7 years old can work for you totally tax-free and do all sorts of odd jobs. There's There are lists and lists of jobs that they can do for you. They can do your mail for you. They can go out to the post office, or not to the post office, but to the post, your mailbox, and get your mail every day. They can do, there's a number of different things that they can do that will qualify for this type of work. You
Sure.
just have to be sure that you are structured properly. So the business that pays them has to be 100% owned by the child's parents. So it can't be a partnership between you and your friend or even a sibling. It has to be a partnership between you and your wife, or a sole proprietorship. And those are the only two types of things that qualify. And so a lot of times people will have an S corp, and unfortunately that doesn't qualify. They don't get the FICA benefit. But what I do is I teach people how to create another company where their S corp pays the other company, and then the other company pays the
Pays the child.
child. Yeah.
So
So
do you set up like a limited liability company? Does
yeah,
that work?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So it just has to be taxed as a sole proprietor, or a sole proprietor, or a partnership wholly owned by the parents.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so we generally set up an LLC, but it can just be a simple sole proprietorship. It doesn't actually have to have that designation behind it, but that
Right.
LLC helps. So we call them family management companies, where that company manages your other company, or it does your advertising for your other company, or it does some specific role for the other company. And then the kids are working not for your S corp, but for your family management company.
Right. No, it's I understand you just well enough to like be able to talk about it at a very high level. And I think like a lot of our listeners, taxes are a completely polarizing thing. Like there are people that get it and are geeking out right now listening to you, and they're like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to save all this money. And then there's the other half of the population that it's like, this sounds like kind of a good idea, but that's why I hire people to do stuff like this. But from what
Yeah.
you're kind of saying is that there aren't a lot of people that specialize in exactly what you do.
No, not a lot at all. I know a lot of the people that do specialize in what I do, and there's not a lot. Like I said, I've worked for a handful of other accountants, and not one of them knows even what I'm talking about when I talk about a lot of these different strategies. And so a lot of times people will take it to their accountant and say, hey, I want to do this, a strategy that I've given them, and their accountant's like, you can't do that. And then I'll have a
Right.
conversation with the accountant, and I'll educate the accountant, open the regs to the accountant, and say, here's where it says I can. They say, oh, okay, I guess you were
Right.
right. I learned something today. So oftentimes I'm not just teaching the client, but I'm teaching their accountant as well.
Right. You're almost like a tax strategist advocate for the
Yeah,
consumer.
exactly.
So that's awesome. One of the things we talked about in the pre-show when we were going through kind of our prep is that not everybody that's going to be listening to this podcast or this episode is necessarily an entrepreneur. They may not have their own business. And, one of the things that we discuss and we teach within Wealth Smart Families and all of our stuff is we show people, how to create that business. I mean, we're big advocates for figuring out how can you save and properly manage more of the money that you have coming in, like the existing money that you have, because a lot of people could save thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, just by like altering, some habits with their current resources that they already have. They just don't know what they don't know. So in addition to that, we also work with people on, building those home-based businesses and those secondary streams of income. Like, all right, if you can get your debt down, if you can be smarter with the money you have, if you can bring more money in, like all these things are going to lead to the end goal, which is kind of the same for everybody, of spending more time with their families and doing more fun stuff, creating more memories, taking the stress, the pressure off, of the finances from week to week, month to month. So, we talk a lot about becoming an entrepreneur. We just do. If you are listening to this and you are not currently an entrepreneur, I highly, highly recommend it. But as Preston and I were talking about this before the show, that if you start a business, if you start any business, there's going to be tax benefits involved. Your business needs to have some kind of profit motive, but you need to attempt to make money, which you should definitely do, and which is why you would do this anyways. But can you talk about some of the more general benefits? Somebody that might not have a current business, if they started a business, they would start seeing in their life, whether it's cell phones, gas, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, those are often kind of some of the general normal ones that you hear about: home office, cell phone, gas. Uh, so I want to kind of mention two people that I'm working with right now. One is actually my sister, and then somebody else is another girl in her office. They make the exact same amount of money. They're both court reporters, and they've done the same thing where they get 1099 on top of it. So they have that benefit of kind of creating this extra source of income that's 1099 or some other type of outside income besides their W-2. And both of them are making between $35,000 and $40,000 in that other money.
Mm-hmm.
And how we're structuring everything, we're not going to use a single strategy that's the same for either of them, but both of them are going to be able to get 100% of that $35,000, $40,000 to their personal account, 100% tax-free. And so they're going to be able to, I mean, that's life-changing for them. It's not a ton of money, but when all of a sudden
it is to a lot of people. That's an extra $3,000 a month. That's their house payment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, they're making that $3,000, but the amount of tax on that, if you were just to have a normal accountant and they just wrote off the miles and wrote off say they were able to get the tax or the income down from 40 to 35, they're still going to pay $6,000 to $7,000 on that tax. So what we're doing is we're just structuring things so they can pull it all out tax free, and that's an extra couple thousand or maybe $1,000, $500 to $1,000 per month that they're not having to give to Uncle Sam, that they can put in their own pocket instead.
It's a car payment then, but it's still, a nice car payment.
Yeah, the average person that I do a tax return for generally saves between like $20,000 and $30,000. But we've saved people upwards. Literally, I have one guy who bought it. He's a pilot by day. He works for a major airline, but he literally bought a jet from his tax savings. And so,
why not?
Yeah, so there's a couple $100,000 that we saved him per year.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, so there's massive savings that you can get. But even if you don't, just starting that little business, there's two things you can do. One is you can convert a lot of those personal expenses that you're paying for anyway, like you said, like the cell phone, like the miles. You can convert those to business miles. But the goal of the business isn't necessarily to lose money. It's you want to make some money. And when you really start making some money, that's when you can really start having fun with these tax plans and really start cutting that tax bill down. So having a home-based business that breaks even, yeah, it's great. You're able to basically increase your lifestyle because you're paying for those expenses. But when you really start making money, then it's gonna really accelerate your lifestyle, because then you can start paying for all sorts of stuff, your retirement, your like I do, my kids hockey and all of their my daughter's ice skates.
Yeah,
and that's
ice time. Are you paying ice time yet?
Yes, expensive stuff.
It's crazy. We pay that.
Yeah. I get it. Realize I was getting into that when I did, but she pays for it all herself. I don't pay for it.
Oh, sure. She pays for it from what you pay her.
Exactly.
That's great. How old is she?
She's 7.
She's 7. She's paying for her own hockey. That's amazing. Yeah. I love it. It's just so that's kind of what I'm talking about here. I mean, it's just not commonly known, and it's not necessarily that you're making more money or anything like that. You're just adjusting how the money moves in your own world a little bit. You're adjusting your habit just a little bit of how the money flows, and it is saving you. Yeah, I know you're paying her rough $800 a month somewhere in there, but it's saving you $250, $300 in your personal taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just one strategy that we're using. So.
Right. That's brilliant. So, and you can use that, I'm sure, you're using it for hockey, but you could use it for college. You could use it for longer term stuff. There's a ton of anything they're doing, right? So they can pay for their own stuff.
What I suggest to a lot of people that do this is start putting it into a Roth IRA. So they take this money it comes out tax-free. It comes into the child's account tax-free. It's earned income. So they can put that $5,500 and max out their Roth IRAs starting at 7 years old.
Right. And by the time they're 17, they get $15,000 in their Roth IRA just sitting there tax-free. Mm-hmm. And if they were to maintain that until an age of retirement, That'd be a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
awesome. That is super awesome. It's that took us too long to get to that point because I love that. That's awesome. So cool. So I understand that you left being a traditional CPA and you kind of went on your own and you just do these tax plans now. You were kind of tired of the tax returns and doing that kind of stuff. What are your goals now? What are you really looking to do? What's kind of your dream job, dream client? What are you doing?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about why I left. One of the things I talked about in the PDF that they're going to get is ways to write off medical expenses through the business. Okay. And that one really kind of hits home for me. We have our youngest is 4 years old, and he spent about 14 months in the hospital, give or take. And so every medical expense that we've paid quite a bit for him, in the 40s of thousands of dollars, but insurance is paid in the millions. I lost count how much he
Sure.
has, but it's somewhere 5-6 million. But so the $40,000 we've had to pay out of pocket has all been paid through my business, and so my goal is to really help people change their lives, help people to. I'm working with somebody right now, trying to work with him. His wife has cancer, and they've spent about $100,000 in medical expenses this year. And under the way the taxes are set up, if he weren't to have the medical expense reimbursement plan, it would, all of that would be above the line and on Schedule A, and he'd lose most of it. So he would get very little benefit. But by putting it the way we've put it, he's actually going to be able to write off the whole thing. So what my goals with my business are really to help as many families as I can. My biggest goal is to save families $1 million a month, and be able to put that into people's pockets. And then, like we talked about with the kids, is putting that into the Roth IRA. The bigger goal is to convince people to take those savings and start putting them into their own personal retirement. So instead of paying Uncle Sam, they pay themselves. And I've convinced a few people to do that. One of my clients, he saved $19,600 per year, and what we did with him was we took $1,500 a month. So he actually increased his own lifestyle by $1,600 a year, but $1,500 a month, and he put that into a retirement account. And that retirement account, in 30 years, at the average rate of return, is going to return him $4 million. And so he had no savings. Going from no savings to being able to retire with $4 million is huge.
Yes.
And so that's where my heart is, in helping people find ways to retire with dignity, to be able to take that load off of their shoulders and kind of put more money in their pocket.
Right. And the rules are in place for us to do it, which is awesome.
Absolutely. They are, and people just don't know about a lot of the stuff that I know about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most accountants don't know. I didn't even know a lot of this stuff until I really started digging into this. Over the past 4 years, I've spent about $100,000 researching and learning and going to conferences on these very specific items to help people, because that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's really about helping people.
Yeah, you go through something, kind of traumatic like you've gone through with your son and all the time in the hospital. It changes your motives for how you want to live your life and your purpose that you want to use your skills for. I mean, we get one shot here. We want to go out and make sure that we do the best we can for humanity. I thought of a funny story when you were talking about that. People just don't know what they don't know when it comes to the taxes. I remember this from, this was 15, 20 years ago. And my dad is a musician. He was a musician his entire life. He's a professional piano player, singer, songwriter, blues music, traveled all over the world, did some pretty cool stuff. But I remember one year, all of his equipment got stolen. And this was back kind of before he really made any real money with it. So they had to go out and they had to buy him all new equipment. It was like $20,000 worth of equipment. Well, that year, that was before he had any real success or sold any, since then he had some gold record songs and platinum songs, and ended up doing pretty well. But this was before that, and he'd made like 30 grand the year before, and they wrote off like 20 grand because of all the equipment. His mindset, being an artist and not understanding taxes, was he actually felt by writing that off he was stealing from the government. And I was like, "Whoa, that's
Wow.
no, it's okay. They allow you to do this. This is in the rules." So a lot of people just really don't understand the rules. Like, so there are people on that spectrum, people that are so far removed from the idea of taxes that they didn't even realize you can write things off. I mean, he uses his own business, but he didn't. He's an artist, so he's not money motivated at all. He just isn't. But he cares about the art and the music. So anyways, that was just kind of a side story, and I thought of it while you were talking, like how much people don't know, and like just changing some habits. I mean, if he didn't think that he could write off that, think of all the little stuff the previous 25 years of his career that he didn't write off.
Absolutely.
Who knows how much it is? It's probably a lot.
So I mean, that's basically. I just got off the phone call this morning with somebody, and everything I do, I try to teach people the way to do it right, legally, 100% legally, and get as much benefit out of the tax code as possible, because it's written for you to. They want you to take advantage of the things that they've written in there. Right. Otherwise, they wouldn't have written it that way, right? Mm-hmm. If but the thing is, when they feel like it's either being taken advantage of or it's gone too far, they'll change it. Right. And they do that. But like the hiring the children, this has been in the tax code for years and years and years, and yet people just don't know, and it's pretty unfortunate. And then you have people like Wesley Snipes who go a little too far on the other side and say, well, I don't want to pay any tax, so I'm going to file a zero return and a fraudulent return, and then you go to jail. So
we're not telling people to lie. Don't lie. Don't commit fraud. That'd be bad.
Fraud's bad.
Yeah. So cool. Well, yeah, no, I understand that's what you teach, for people that aren't quite at that point, but they just want to learn more. You're generous enough to put together a pretty solid PDF. I mean, we were looking at it. Some of the team was looking at it, and, we were talking about, and all of a sudden we were talking about taxes. I'm like, what are we doing, team? But everybody was kind of excited about it. So you created that and you put that together to give out to any of our listeners, so that it's just kind of a resource. It's a jumping off point for people to check it out and learn more about what you do. Do you want to talk about what's on that PDF a little bit, that report that they're going to be able to get, and then I'll tell them how they can get access to it?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So I kind of put together, it's a lot of the strategies that we've talked about today, right? So it's hiring the kids, and it's how actually to do it. It's kind of the little bit more of the nuts and bolts. And then how much you're actually going to save by putting that plan into that strategy into place. And I've done this for 4 different strategies. It's the hiring your children. It's the medical reimbursement plan. So having your business pay for your expenses, or being able to write off those expenses above the line and getting a full benefit for them instead of having it all go to Schedule A. How to have your business pay for your vacations or other travel. And then the last one was using the credit card rewards. Honestly, it's something that's small. That's, for some people, might be $500 a year or maybe $1,000 a year. But it's one of my favorite strategies out there. It's a little thing that is, to me, it's a lot of fun. And most people don't think of taxes and fun in the same sentence. I geek out about this stuff. When I start to talk to people,
you found a wife and everything. That's crazy.
I know, right? I know. Oh man, I fooled her.
Yep.
But each of these strategies, you'll be able to see kind of a little bit more in depth in the nuts and bolts of how to actually put them into place, and how to calculate the actual savings that you'll get from them. And so you can use this. You can take this to your accountant, and they should be able to help you. Or if you wanted to ever give me a call, you're more than happy to do that as well.
Yep. Yeah. No, I know all your contact information's on there, and we'll make sure it's on the website as well. So anybody who's interested in that report, it's 100% free. You just take it. It's a resource. And it is on our website, the wealthsmartfamilies.com website. So wealthsmartfamilies.com/Preston, Preston. So wealthsmartfamilies.com/Preston. That'll also be in the show notes. and you'll be able to find if you go navigate our website as well. But we'll make sure his contact information is on there. If anybody wants to learn more, take it to another level. I love that you came on here. If people could benefit from working with you, from talking to you, having a conversation with you, I highly encourage anybody to check this out and dive deeper into it, because it can save you thousands to tens of thousands to maybe even more every single year. So, well, I just want to say thank you, Preston, for jumping on here and giving us your time and some of your expertise. And if there's anything we can do for you in the future, let us know. But is there anything you want to close out with?
Dan, no, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you being so generous with your time. Just kind of the way that you had said things, for people that don't own a business, starting a business is so huge. There's a progression though when you do. At first, might be a little bit for the taxes, might be a little bit just to save a little bit here and there, or to generate a little bit income. But as you do it, from my experience and from the people that I've been around, it becomes so much more. And when you start diving into business development, it often leads to personal development. And so that's when I work with people, I don't just stop at the business side and the tax side. I also try to impart a little bit of the wisdom that I've learned over the years. One of the gifts that I give to every new client is a book called Mindset, and it's a book that has helped me grow massively. And so anybody that hasn't started a business yet, I really urge you to look into it, to think of something that will find if it's a passion, great. If it's not, but it's something that can become one, hey, better, even
Right.
great. That's great too. But just finding something that you can jump into and develop. And as you develop, you'll get a whole new set of skills that you never thought you would have had before.
Hey, that's awesome. And I don't normally segue into our own stuff or anything, but shameless self-promotion on our end. I mean, that's kind of what we work on. We help working with people who want to start some kind of home-based business. And we have stuff around vacationing and home-based businesses that fit right into alignment with everything we're all about and everything that you're talking about. And so I think that's great. I mean, people should look into it. It doesn't have to sound as daunting as it does. It can be a spare time, part-time thing in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can take it somewhere, that's awesome. That's amazing. And the people that want to take it somewhere will. So I think that's a great way to close out the show today. So thank you once again, Preston, for jumping on here. And like I said, you can go check out that free report that he put together at wealthsmartfamilies.com/Preston. And with that being said, I appreciate you. And until next time, thanks a lot.
Thank you.